the shell, my happiest part of the whole project. Now, this one took such a long time, not because of the actual shell itself, but because of the spikes. The spikes, I actually layered like 6 layers of this super thick foam. I'll find it for you in a bit, but I did 6 per spike in a triangle and then just dremeled them for like a month every day. And it didn't help that I have a little portable Dremel, a micro Dremel, which only lasted for about half an hour, 45 minutes when I had it on the highest setting, which is what I needed for this particular foam because it was quite dense, I guess is the word I'm after. I would only have it on the lower setting when smoothing out stuff, but if I actually needed to dig in to get it down, I don't know if you can see it on any of them. I don't know if you can see it, but like in the future, I will definitely math out to have less foam because on like the very first outer layer, so the 5th and 6th layer on the outside of each, there's only like the bottom part of it. All of these were those 6 layers with a bit of that wire I mentioned in the middle to give it something for me to hold on to, 1, while I was dremeling them, and 2, something for them to grip onto in case they got whacked. Same thing, as you can see, all the points are a bit dodgy now that the con is over. Some of them have even broken off. So I like this. Not only is it a shield, which I've got bits of elastic in here for, but it's also a backpack. That I kind of had to hold because I couldn't think how else to do it. I'll mention that backpack in a sec, but first, so we've got spikes, then those bits going around are literally just strips of foam, which I heated and rolled to give them the smoothest effect possible. It isn't 100% smooth, but it was better than spending more time dremeling, which at that point I'm pretty sure I have foam-covered lungs by the end of this, and I was using all the protection I had. Stay protected, kids. The shell bit itself, I literally just guessed how big I want the shell, the general shape of the shell, and cut out a circle. I initially bought a yoga ball to try and curve it over, but no matter how much air I pumped that ball with, it just kept not curving the foam as I wanted. So I ended up having to use Wirrus, W-I-R-R-U, Cosplay's mention of cutting the slits and curving it, and that was essentially just improvised. Like, there's one of the slits there. As you can see, it's not part of the original design. Now, something I did purely because I wanted to give it some extra stability in case someone whacks it, since it's so big, was I painted about 2 layers of material. This is black material with glue. First layer was Elmer's glue, and then I ran out of Elmer's glue. And then I couldn't find anyone who stocked the massive packets. So this was the one I bought like 2 years ago. Taken me 2 years to go through that, and it's very good if you have something that doesn't need to be held into shape. But I couldn't find anyone who stocks that anymore because people, for whatever reason, don't want to sell it anymore. So I just went with the good old-fashioned PVA glue. That's wood glue for the second layer. Yeah, so that's all material, black material in there, so that anything I drilled or glued would just have some extra stability and security. This bit is also foam, but it's like wrapped foam. So I literally got my housemate to help me. I literally got a bit of foam, did a whole bunch of the, not that glue, but the contact glue, and got my housemate to help me roll it, then glue, roll it, glue, and then tied it up overnight. Because even though that contact glue is good, it just would not hold this shape. I don't know if it's because it was too tight or because this particular foam has that weird grate texture, so it didn't have as much contact. Sorry, that was my phone. So after that was done and I left a lip, I then glued this onto it with the lip. I don't know if you can see it sticking out there. So I'd say the actual this part of the shield ends probably about here underneath it, and I kind of shoved it on and glued both sides and prayed, essentially. And that did work, except for the fact that I couldn't get the rolls to be all the way around. So then we've got these two lumpy areas where I had to join one roll with another roll. That I tried using the EVA... No, sorry. I tried using the foam clay, and I did water it down, but I don't know whether because of the tension or something like that, it just ended up being lumpy. And at the time, I was running out of time, so I just went, screw it, it's a look, it's a feature, because I had to get it painted. In reference to the attachments, this bit here, if I can get it, I'll talk about the shield part first, because that's my favourite part. The backpack was more just to carry it around. That is an actual door handle that I got from a hardware store and screwed it in. So you can see there's two dilts. There's two things where screws were actually sticking out of it, and I got my housemate to use his superior muscle strength to cut it with a bolt cutter so that it was as flat as possible. That's backed up with some Sika super glue, which I will put here. These are just bits of elastic because I wanted that extra security on my arm without it hurting, so that my arm could be like that. So this one is essentially to keep it where I want it, and then the arm bit is more just extra support / keeping it straight. Those I also bolted down with that wire that I had bent into kind of a staple shape, forced it through, used a bit more of that super glue stuff, which you can kind of see it leaking there because I couldn't put the shell that way because I'd already stuck the spikes on. If I made this again, I would definitely reorganize everything so that it's a lot more easier to attach some things. But yeah, made essentially a staple out of the wire, shoved it in, glued it, waited that whole period. Same thing with the backpack straps. Now, you may be wondering, why is one strap so much longer than the other? That's because I wanted it to sit like my rig. I wanted it to sit around my shoulders rather than on my shoulders like the rig did. I'll put it on in a second. But essentially, same thing. I just essentially improvised with the lengths they would have to be used. I hear some people call it a parachute clip, but in Australia, it's called a quick release buckle. But it's that thing, if you know what that is. And I'll put it on for you in a sec. But this is essentially the most proud thing I've been for the whole thing. And by the way, all those staples were actually sticking out of the other end. Same thing with, I just cut it all off with a pair of wire cutters myself because I didn't need no big strong man, but just simple wire. Now we will put on the backpack. So I made it that this side was the long side since that's where my shoulder piece was. And at the time, I thought I would have to get my friends to help me put it on. Oh, sorry, I just realized you can't see me. So let's just kneel here. There we go. Alright, so the strap goes there, goes through. I put it through the handle, and then I grab the other strap, buckle it together, and then when I readjust myself, that buckle ends up behind me, and it's all on my back. And since I already had the rig making this shape, it just kind of blended in with the rig. If I had time, I might put some like bits of elastic that would attach it to my belt so it would stay flat, but for now, I think that's pretty good for someone who completely improvised the whole thing.